So actually, I was just talking to someone just now about Shein, and some of their clothes are like a few pounds or something, and that should be a massive red flag. When I started working in fashion, I was just really swept up in the kind of like culture of, I'm in a big company, I want to work my way up to the top. So it just wasn't really on my radar.
Like, what were you thinking, and what questions were you asking yourself? This conversation was recorded live in front of an audience at our Climate Collab Breakfast Club. Feel free to join us. It's on the final Tuesday of every month, usually in London. So feel free to connect with us and join us there if you want to meet us in person. But enjoy this conversation just as much as I did.
I'm Daisy. I've always worked in fashion, in merchandising and marketing, mainly for bigger brands like TK Maxx and Burberry, and always loved being in the industry and being involved in how creative it is. But 5 years ago, I was actually on a work trip and I saw some children, like a primary school, they were protesting climate change. And that moment had a really significant impact on me. And I started to, research the impact that the fashion industry has on the environment and the people within the supply chain. And I realized quite quickly that I was becoming very passionate about this, and my job no longer aligned with my values. So I first of all thought, okay, what can I do on a small scale? What can I do personally to make a difference? So started shopping only from small sustainable brands and met some really amazing people. Actually, Harriet, one of the first brands I worked with is here, her brand Saywood. And so first of all, what I did is I did a really small crowdfund. I launched a sustainable fashion marketplace called Loft, which was brilliant. And, finally I was doing a job which aligned with my values and, trying to drive positive change within the fashion industry and supporting these small brands. But what I discovered fairly quickly was that a lot of people want to shop sustainably, but they really struggle to find clothes that they love or that fit them perfectly. So I started working with some of the designers I knew to make custom-made clothes and upcycled clothes, and realized there was something really special about that process, because you're creating clothes with the designer, you get that personal connection with them, and then you have so much more value given to those clothes. And that gave me the idea for Loom. So I've kind of been working on that in the background, and basically what Loom does is it connects you with designers to make custom-made and upcycled clothes. So it's kind of like a Fiverr for fashion designers, and launched a couple of months ago. So that's a whistle-stop tour.
Nice. So up until you're working in fashion, when you were in the belly of the beast, as it were, did anything, were you getting like slight red flags, like things are jumping out, or were you so far distant from perhaps where the factories were or stuff? Like, tell us a bit more about that.
So I think, so I was distanced from like the larger factories, but also I think when I started working in fashion, I was just really swept up in the kind of like culture of, I'm in a big company, I want to work my way up to the top. So it just wasn't really on my radar for a while, if I'm honest, until I had that moment that kind of made me really start to think about what's actually happening, not just in the office, but throughout the whole supply chain.
And the pull was enough for you to want to just quit and go entrepreneurial. Had you done any like entrepreneurial endeavors prior to, I know you said you started Loft. Was that as a side to your corporate job?
Yeah, so that was first of all as a side thing. I think I'd always wanted to do my own thing.
Yeah.
My dad had his own business, so he was like a massive inspiration to me. Not sustainable at all, actually. He actually works with Amazon, but we'll ignore that. But seeing him do his own business really inspired me. And I'd always wanted to do that, but I just hadn't had the idea before that of something I'm so passionate about that I was going to really commit so much time to it.
Mm-hmm. Could you share with us a bit more about like the issues that stand when someone buys a generic garment off the rack or whatever? Like, could you tell us a bit more about that? Do you know like level of impact that actually causes?
So I think it depends which brand you're buying from, but there's a few things to take into account. So I guess first of all, with the price, is there enough, margin within that to support the people that are making the clothes? So actually, I was just talking to someone just now about Shein, and some of their clothes are like a few pounds or something, and that should be a massive red flag that someone's created this garment and they're clearly not getting paid enough, because that's going to take a few hours to make those clothes. So they're basically not getting paid anything. And then I think on the sustainable side as well, it's, what are the clothes made out of? Is it made from plastic that's going to be around for ages, or is it recycled, or is it an amazing, like viscose or something sustainable that can then be, less harmful on the planet? So I think it's, when you're looking at your clothes, it's thinking about the people and the planet and that impact on both of those things.
So Daisy, when you were telling us a bit about the story leading up to it, sounded like you did a bit of, like you launched something and it was good, and then you realized that there was a few other areas that you needed a bit more clarification on, or actually was the problem in that. Like, could you share a bit more about that? And what I love is that you kept asking, you kept discovering, kept going for it rather than just like, got it, hole in one. Like, what?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that kind of like, what do I call it? Like, I guess go to market.
Yeah. So I think with my first business launch, I was like really excited about sustainability and really loved my idea. But what I did wrong is I didn't speak to enough people. So I was kind of like, this is amazing. I want to do this. Went out and did it and learned a lot. But I was kind of on my own for a lot of that. So I think one, in terms of like, didn't speak to enough customers, and then eventually did. And then that's what gave me the idea for Loom. But then also just like other small business owners. And I think the more you talk to people, the more ideas you get, the more advice you get. And obviously you don't want to take all the advice, but it helps open your mind and give you new thoughts of what you could do and what your business actually needs to be and how it's going to actually provide values to others rather than just being your initial good idea.
So after a couple of people saying the same thing, having the same problem, what then led you to go, oh, I'm going to solve that? And can you tell us a bit more about how you went about actually fixing it?
Yeah. So I think one of the great things that I did with Loft was a lot of pop-ups and events in person. So that's how I initially started having those conversations with customers all the time.
Yeah.
And then after a few of very similar conversations of people being like, oh, I really want to shop sustainably, but there's, I'm just struggling to find the exact thing I want. That's when I started working with some of the designers I knew to be like, oh, could you actually make this custom made? And then they could. And so that's how it kind of snowballed. So it was just from having those conversations and then just asking questions and seeing what's possible.
And from Loft to Loom,
yeah,
what did you have to tweak? Like, was there a whole new build?
Yeah. Yeah. So there was like a really difficult stage where I was like, I built Loft. I've been doing it for a couple of years. I put so much into it, quit my job, realized it wasn't gaining the momentum that I wanted. And I had this other idea. So there was a period where I was just kind of basically accepting that I needed to do a big switch and do Loom and do it completely differently. So I pitched the idea to an accelerator called Small But Perfect, which was supported by Fashion Revolution. Luckily got accepted onto that. And that really gave me support in developing the idea, but then also the confidence that actually this is what I should be doing. And then, so it was over a period of time, but I learned a lot. And then I was like, okay, now I have to give this idea everything, because I think this is what's really giving me energy. And I think this is really unique.
How tough was it for you to go, oh, now this first marketplace not getting traction? There's an easier bit, like I could just go back to corporate life and maybe earn a bit more money, it'd be easier, less stress. But then you had this decision to make, like, kill off the previous thing and start something. Like, tell us about, like, what were you thinking and what questions were you asking yourself, and how did you see your way through to that journey rather than just taking the easy journey? Because I know that so many people go through that same struggle, or they'll be facing those struggles coming on.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to know kind of how you worked your way through it.
Yeah. So I think it gave me a lot of resilience, because I think there's a danger sometimes as a founder when you've built something and you realize it's not quite working, that you kind of don't want to not give up on it, but we've given it everything. So to then, switch or pivot or whatever, it's kind of can be a bit heartbreaking. And I think it really tests your resilience to be like, okay, I need to park this, it's not working, I need to do something else. I think what I did know for sure, though, was that leaving my job was the right thing to do, because now I think at my old job, I kind of didn't really have a purpose, and now I really did. And I had that fire within me. And although it was super stressful and sometimes really, really difficult, I knew I was on the right track. I just needed to work out the way. And I did have to get another job in between while I was setting up Loom.
Yeah.
And that just reaffirmed that, the corporate role for me isn't quite right. And it is for some people, but I think when you've got your idea and you really want to make a difference, you have to give it everything. But you also have to, take in other ideas, talk to people, and not just have like the blinkers on and shut out other people. You need to take it all in and speak to people and learn. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason I'm like sticking on that bit, because I do speak to a lot of founders that are very focused in on, no, this is right, this is right, this is right, even though so many times, there could be other ways of fixing it, and they're afraid, or maybe they're so latched on to that. Maybe they'll be seen as a failure that their first thing didn't work out, and they don't want to kill it. So that's interesting, and I applaud you for having that conviction with Loom. Could you explain to us how you went about like getting your first customers?
Yeah. So I think with Loom, from the beginning, it was all about speaking to my designers and customers about what it could be. And before launching, I did a lot of speaking with people, basically. And that helped build some momentum pre-launch. So I already had designers that I was working with who are kind of my customers. So I had those signed up to the platform before we launched. And then since then, we only launched a couple of months ago, but it's just been telling people about it, getting people involved in the idea.
Yeah.
And it's just been through word of mouth so far that we've had our first customers. So just friends of friends learning about the idea, being interested, and then wanting to try it.
With those first conversations and how they then transport into actually like transactions for money, right? Being actually in business, were you able to? Did you have like an MVP? Did you do like spreadsheet transaction, or did you actually have to build something first and invest in some tech?
So I was lucky in a way that I had a grant from the accelerator.
Oh yeah.
So that helped me build our MVP, which it still is just an MVP. It's very, very basic. But so I was lucky in that way, but it is basic because I don't want to spend loads of money in creating something and then, similar situation as before, realize that it's not quite right. So starting small and then just talking to customers and our designers all the time to get feedback so we can make quick changes to this like no code MVP I know exactly what it is and how it should work, and then build a more expensive coded product.
I think that's really brilliant. I think that not often enough do we share our ideas, consult others for us to help us shape our trajectory roadmap. I have met quite a few people that have gone out, either bootstrapped, invested their own money plus their family and friends, or they've gone and done a small pre-seed round, $250K or whatever, gone and built something and not had enough conversations, so that when those first conversations come in, customers are like, no, I don't really need this, or nah, it's not right. And then suddenly you've got all this like almost wasted investment and this bit of tech that no one's using. You then aren't able to create the traction. You don't get it off the road. And then maybe the next round you go to raise again and you don't have anything that you can go with. And then it's a very painful decision to make. But I love how you've gone out and, done that first, which is fantastic. And I recommend that everyone tries doing that as much as possible and never stops doing that. I think that's fantastic. So where are you today? So you said you're bootstrapped, got a little bit of grant money, bootstrapped. So what's next for you?
So at the moment, there's kind of two big focuses for me. It's one, the community, so growing that traction. So we launched with 10 designers, now we've got 50. So growing our designer community, and then also our customers now. So just starting to do our own events. So we've got like panel talks and pop-ups coming out, which is super exciting. And the other side of it is using that community to then build the tech side of it. So getting that feedback and building out the product to work out exactly what it's going to be, to then, build it into a proper product. It's still the MVP at the moment in the future.
All right, cool. Do you have like a favorite failure of your journey so far? Like one that like maybe shaped you up for success?
I think it is closing down a Loft, actually, because it felt like a massive failure because I'd put so much into it and it'd been like that first step for me in this journey. And I think I really kind of clung on to it for maybe a little bit too long. But I learned so much from creating it and then having to shut it down. So I think that was huge learning for me. And now I'm really proud of it. But for a while afterwards, it was like very conflicting feelings when I thought about it. That like I had this is like a small thing, but I had this neon sign that I used for all of our pop-ups. And once when I closed it down, it was kind of sat in storage for ages. And I kind of found it quite hard to look at it because I was like, it just reminded me of failure. But now we have it in the flat and I'm excited to put it up and like have it there as like a reminder of like, it's a positive thing now. Like all of this good stuff has come from it.
Yeah, it's like this. It was the springboard.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that you kept it. I thought you were going to say I jumped on it, I smashed it.
I did it.
No, okay. Oh, amazing. I love that. I love that. That's so good. I was trying to think if I've got like similar things from my previous businesses. I think I do. But this is one of the things, right? Is that knowledge, experience, and your own skills is something that no one can take from you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not something that will ever get squashed. You don't get taxed on it. Can't get divorced from it. But it's still with you, and it can help you shape your next shit. It's just incredible. Do you have now? You're in actually like really involved in sustainability. Could you share with us some of your like sustainable swaps or sustainable habits that you have?
So I'm obviously going to be biased, but it will be fashion related. I think for me, it's that relationship that you have with your clothes. So rather if something's not fitting you or you thought something and it doesn't, you don't wear it, like doing something about that. So whether that's getting it mended or repaired or getting it altered or even upcycling it, it's taking it from sustainable and then making it circular. So rather than throwing it away, you're still giving it an end of life use. So like reusing it again. And then I think apart from fashion, there's so many amazing products out there. I think just doing one small change at a time. Like recently we got some sustainable toothbrushes. I tried to do like one swap a month to try and make everything in my house a bit more sustainable.
Yeah.
The small things rather than like trying to in one go.
We did the same thing. We were like, okay, we'll go and try and take on a room in our house. Like, is it the bathroom? We'll try and slowly change that. And then, because it's sometimes a bit daunting. And the guys before, Julian and Sam were saying like, to go from like 0 to 100, it's going to be very tough on you to try and change all those things. So if you try and take bite-sized pieces, eventually you'll look around, you'll be like, oh, I'm living great. I'm living a more sustainable life. Fantastic. Is there a certain CEO, leader, or activist that you're like fond of and you're listening to, you're subscribed to?
Yeah, so I think for me, someone that I've followed a lot is Ashita Kabra, who's the founder of iRotation.
Okay.
I think for me, like that's another circular fashion solution where you're renting clothes. So again, it's giving them more use. And she's built this amazing community, and it feels like that community aspect is so important for driving change because people feel like they belong to a movement, and then it just kind of snowballs and builds and builds. So I'm really impressed with like what she's built, and I'd love to create something similar.
Amazing. Do you know how she started that? Was it community first, then like tech product, or was it product and then community?
I think it was more product first, but actually I've got her on my panel in a few weeks. So I'm going to be asking her these questions.
Great. Amazing.
Yeah. I'm not 100% sure. So
please share it with us. I'll share it with the rest of the community. It'd be fantastic. What does kind leadership mean to you?
So I think kind leadership is, again, about involving people. So I think rather than directing people and telling people what to do, it's listening and making sure that everyone feels involved in what you're leading them in. So that everyone has that commitment, that personal commitment, and it's not like they're being told. Everyone wants to be motivated to achieve that goal.
Amazing. I love that. How do we get hold of you? Like, how do we keep in touch? How do we send customers to you?
So our website's loom.fashion. It's nice and simple. And on Instagram at the Loom app. So they're the best ways.
At the Loom app?
Yeah.
And loom.fashion.
Yeah.
That is a great URL. That's a good one. I like that one. Thank you so much. Has anyone in the audience got a question for Daisy? Yes, at the back. If I can just repeat the question back so the audience can hear that are subscribing online, is what was the kind of like timeline of you closing down Loft or the neon sign of Loft and then bringing the Loft neon sign back? When were you able to face that again?
So I closed down the business spring last year, and I only took the sign out a few months ago. So it took me a long time. It's been a long journey, but yeah.
Were there like was it just time that you needed, or did you need to revalidate or see certain steps of success with the new thing to then be able to pull that back?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think initially it was kind of like the shock and just coming to terms and accepting with what was happening. And then, yeah, exactly what you were just saying, like then seeing more positive stuff happen and then being able to associate it with positivity and like, exciting things has meant that I fully accepted it and come round and it's a good thing again. So I think what's great about being circular is it's trying to divert all of those clothes from landfill for as long as possible. So trying to give that the life of those clothes to extend it as much as you can. I think with recycling, it's a complicated topic because a lot of clothes say they're recycled, but then can they be recycled at the end of their life? And with fabrics at the moment, for clothes to be properly recycled, they have to separate all of the fibers. So I think right now recycling is difficult, but there's some really amazing solutions out there that are being developed. So for example, I recently was working with Studio Samita, who they can take mixed fibers. They have this special binding agent and it creates like a leather material. So you don't have to separate all the fibers. They can take anything, so any old clothes, and turn it into something completely new. And that's complete. There's no waste for them to take that back and turn it into something new. So I think right now recycling is difficult, but I think in the future there's going to be amazing solutions. And I think with like thrifting and renting and all of these solutions you can do right now are amazing because it's anything to extend that lifetime of the clothes is important.
Just wanted to add on to that. I can't remember the chap's name that I saw on LinkedIn for the post of all the R's that we all know about, repurpose, recycle, and recycling was actually the very last one. The very first one was refuse. So don't subscribe to thinking that you need to buy a certain thing.
Yeah. So the question was, do I work in a team? And if so, how do I share the vision with them? So kind of. It's only me working on Loom full time at the moment. But what I do work is with like developers and, other freelancers when I need to. And how I share the vision with them. I mean, I will share the vision with them and I'll only work with people who get excited about it with me and who share the same values. So it's kind of just making sure I only work with people who are as excited as I am about where it's going.
If everything works out, and it will, what's the vision look like? What does the world look like if we zoom out 5, 10 years from now?
So what I'd love to do with Loom is to encourage people to basically look at their wardrobe and if there's any clothes that they're not wearing, to find a new life for them. So whether that's upcycling it, mending it, altering it, whatever. I think broader, what I'd love to do with all of these amazing sustainable fashion businesses is to really drive change so that people stop consuming so much. I mean, I think there's a stat that we've got enough clothes now on the planet to dress the next 6 generations or something like that. So we've got enough. So how do we change consumers' behaviors and instead use what we've already got instead of just creating and building more and more and more? And I think if we can drive that change in the fashion industry so that people don't want new things, they want to, upcycle, that would be amazing. So to drive that kind of change.
Brilliant. That's
Yeah. So the question was, am I focused on the UK and then if I got plans to scale? Yes. So first of all, starting really small, mainly London focused, just while I'm growing it and developing the idea. But what I'd love to do is to build a product that is scalable so that we can launch it and drive this impact in other countries as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be fantastic, because then you've got those local communities sharing each other's pieces, being all tailored and alterated in a very small area. We're not shipping things across the world, right? And then if there is enough demand, you can then replicate that here. And then if you want, it's something that you saw in London, you could create a hub, say in Paris, but it's only actually made 2 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, love that.
So the question was, how important is it to have physical space? For me, I found it important because, especially on a smaller scale, you can meet people face to face. You start to have that personal connection with them. And I think, especially for me, where I'm supporting our designers, it's all about having that personal connection and adding that value to your clothes. So I personally see it being super important because it just kind of brings that humanity to fashion, which is what I'm trying to drive as well, and add that value to it.
Perfect.
Really good question. So just ask about my future customer acquisition. First of all, I am targeting people who are interested in sustainability simply because I think they're going to be the early adopters. But in the future, I'd love it to, to reach anyone who's interested in fashion and, being creative with their wardrobe. But initially, I'm focusing on those people who are already into sustainability so that I can get their feedback on the product. But once I've got that product ready and I know what it is and it's stable, then I'll be focusing on finding new customers, new types of customers.
Interesting.
That's all about how do I vet my designer and work with them. So at the moment, I meet with them all, either by Zoom or face to face if I can, just to learn about their experience. And all of the designers on the platform at the moment have sold already. So I'm seeing their products. So and that's very manual at the moment, but that's how I'm doing it to start off with. But also starting to work with unis, so graduates who are fresh out of university who maybe don't have that experience. And I think it's just being honest to the customer about the level of experience, and that obviously affects price. And then I think in the future it would be, working on a review basis. So if we have a designer and, for whatever reason that doesn't feel like the quality is up to scratch, would review it case by case. But at the moment, I'm meeting them face to face. I know them, and just being honest with the customers about their level of experience. Yeah. So from a sustainability perspective, all of the designers I work with have that as a value. And actually, I think within the fashion industry and independent designers as well, it's quite common that they're really passionate about that because they're working on a small scale. And when they're working for themselves independently, they have that ability to really push that value and make sure that they're making a difference within their community. As it is a struggle yet, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, and I think as well, it's easy to tell when someone's actually passionate about sustainability. And a lot of these designers that I work with, if you just look at their Instagram, is all they talk about is about sustainability and driving the change that they want to see on their small basis. So I think you can quite quickly see if it's, they don't actually care about it. And I'm only working as small independent designer, so I am talking to them face to face. Whereas with bigger brands, unless there's facts to back it up, it's hard to tell whether it's real.
That's a great question. I often get asked that about the vetting process of client community, the clients that you work with, and who do you advise? How do you know they're sustainable? What methodology do you go through? Do they have to be a specific stamp certified? And I genuinely take a stance like Daisy's, because I've been in the space for quite a while, I have a good sense of what is sustainable, what's not. And I'm more like, what vibe do I get from this person as the leader of the company? And if I speak to them and I think in my mind, if I was to write this person a check, let's say that I wrote them a check for £10 million, what would they do with it? Quite quickly, from the questions I get back from them, I know that they wouldn't go and buy a bigger house or a faster car or a fancy, maybe like a yacht or something, and that you can't buy a yacht with 10 million, but, fancier shoes or whatever it is, right? I would be like, how would they change their lifestyle? And the people that I accept with open arms are the people that would go, well, actually, I'd probably just reinvest into serving more people and getting my product that does good in the world to more people. I would actually invest in bringing on a bigger team to help that happen quicker, faster. So it's about are they going to spend that money to enable a better world? Yes or no?
So the question was, if there's one thing that everyone here could do today to help me, what would it be as a community? To be honest, it'd be to have a look at my product and tell me honestly what you think. And if you have anything that you'd like to upcycle, I'd love to do all that I can to make that happen and just to get your honest thoughts on the process.
That was a great question, Paul. Yeah. Thanks for that one.
Yeah, so the question was like, how do you change consumer mindset? I think for me, it's starting small. So like I said, it's a huge problem that we have to fix. And what I found most success in is like working with one person, one customer at a time. So we've only had a few customers, but it's been a new experience for all of those customers, and taking them through the process of like, you don't have to throw that dress away. You can upcycle it into a skirt and a top that you'll then wear. That's one person now that knows there's a different way. They've experienced it. They've enjoyed it. And like you said, it's not about shaming. It's about bringing that positivity to that change in mindset. And then they'll tell more people, and then they'll tell more people. So I think it's making the change that you cannot, even if it's on a smaller basis, and then that will build momentum. I don't know what you think, Dana.
I've spent a lot of time with that, and having my previous business, Liquid Proof, I was working with fashion, right? And we were all about, fashion is a crazy industry in that it's set up to make people believe they have to buy a certain thing, to look a certain way, to impress people that they may never even know. So how do we change that mindset? And it really is a mindset shift. And I think it's about show and tell. We need to prove to others that the world can be a better place and that we can inspire people. So we lead by example. And everything that I am trying to do with Kind Community is all about creating that shift to change the future of consumerism. And that every touch point where we basically try to work with brands, small independent brands that get sustainability, have a great product, and help them articulate and communicate and help others live a more kinder life. And then through that, by putting out content, working with community support, we're able to then share that voice and that message with many, many more people at scale, while being resilient enough to stand the blowing gales of forces of all these extractive brands that are continuing to put out content that and we just try and stand collectively as a stronger force. So that's kind of how I'm going about it. It's going to take a very long time, and there's certainly people that don't want that to happen, but I think by leading with kindness, which is my simplest form of what sustainability truly is, and if you're kind to what you put in and on your body, and you're kind to your loved ones and kind to the community, you are sustainable. So that's kind of what we're trying to change. And I think through showing to influencers and our celebrities that sustainability is cool, they can then share that with their influence. They shape more people. The brands then share that to tens of thousands of people, and then that slowly ripples out. Legacy systems, the old way of doing business, when maybe they weren't quite sure what would play out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I'm sure the original, let's say fashion, I'm sure the OG manufacturers and brands didn't know quite the negative impact that they could have. So if we can change the narrative and be like, you can still make money, we can still positively impact the planet, and everyone can feel good across the entire supply chain. You don't have to be so distracted.
What key learnings from my last business? I think it was what I was speaking about before was the main one, was just speaking to people. So speaking to my customers, speaking to the people that I was working with, and also building a network of people around me that I can ask for advice and to help guide me, because, it is still early days for me as like a founder and an entrepreneur. So any advice that I can get is so valuable. So I think that's probably the biggest learning for me. I think last time I was trying to do it all on my own and trying to, I can do this, but actually you are way more powerful and you can have more impact the more people that you've got around you that are supporting you. So I think that's the biggest one for me.
Love that. I think there was an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us today, Daisy. Thank you a lot.
How do you build a highly successful Kind company?
I built an 8-figure global sustainable brand by the age of 28, and now I'm building Kind Community into a portfolio that helps create a healthier and more sustainable future. In this podcast, I share the many failures and lessons I've learned in scaling my own purpose-driven brand, working alongside the largest, most recognizable brands in the world, and helping you do the same. So if you're interested in kind leadership and making the sustainable, attainable, and accessible, this is for you.